minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock, Leanne Rhymes just finished singing God Bless America. It is a Tuesday morning, the 24th day of October. Mark Size, your host here on the early morning program. 46 degrees is the current temperature in Las Vegas, and we are starting, as I've already stated, a new book today. Joel chapter 1 is where we are going to be at today. Now, as we get into the book of Joel, I want to let you know that we have a prayer line open for you at 505-425-3717. Also, we have an email address where you can also send your prayer request. It's cliff@klyn@gmail.com. And Cliff says that if he gets your prayer request and he starts praying over it and he feels that the Lord has a word for you, he might shoot you back an email. So you might check your junk email every once in a while if you're waiting for something to see if the Lord has anything for you. But once again, there it is. 505-425-3717 is the current prayer line on the telephone, open till 8 o'clock this morning. We are, as I've told you already, in the book of Joel, moving through the Old Testament into the minor prophets now. Minor because of the size of their books, not so much by the diminished content of it or anything like that, or, it's all the same. It's the word of the Lord, and that's the way Joel starts off his book. The word of the Lord Yahweh that came to Joel, the son of Pethuel. Now, we know very little about Joel personally. We know very little about even the times. There's a lot of conjecture of exactly when Joel was speaking to the nation of Israel. Somewhere maybe within the time of the kings. Maybe it was during the exile. Maybe it was after the exile. There's little hints here and there that you can pick up along the way. But really, we only have 3 chapters. And Joel just gets right into it right away. I mean, he's just getting out there and giving the word that he has. Now, let me tell you, as before we get too deep into at least the first chapter today, is that we are going to be cutting off a little bit early. We're going to be going up till 7 o'clock in the morning. So instead of going past the top of the hour, we will be about 7 o'clock. So if you people that are on our social media, say, well, where is he? That's the way I got to do it. And probably going to do that the rest of this week. But there's only 3 chapters in the book of Joel. That has nothing to do with us cutting off early. But here, who's Joel? Well, he's got a daddy. His name is Pethuel. Other than that, you can't really trace him. You can't really trace him biblically. You can't say, well, okay, Pethuel was a priest. This guy isn't a priest. He's not one of the governmental leaders that we know. What we do know is that he's a prophet. What we do know, there it goes again. Stop broadcast, stop recording. See, that's what happened to us yesterday. So we'll see if it continues or not. Don't know why we're getting the cutoff. Maybe I got to reboot a couple of computers or something like that. You just never know what the fix is for it. So not sure if we're streaming right now or not, because I got another error message. And let's see if I if I hit the right A, B, or C that came in. Here, the word of the Lord that came to Joel, the son of Pethuel. Hear this, you elders. Give ear, all you inhabitants of the land. Has anything like this happened in your days, or even in the days of your fathers? Now, remember hearing about the town crier? You ever hear about the person that used to go through the streets of maybe, early times of America or England or someplace like that, I would imagine, where you had the town crier that was going through the streets while everybody was asleep and making sure that they knew that everything was okay? Or maybe that everything wasn't okay because that's what the town crier was there for. You know, and I'm not telling you I did a study on the town crier, but I imagine the guy going through every part isn't okay. I see Joel as that type of a person. I see Joel as the guy. Good morning, Andrea. I don't know. We tried getting cut off a couple of times again, Andrea, this morning, and I guess we're still there because I just got her thumbs up and telling everybody here on KLYN good morning. So maybe I did press the right button to keep us going. Hear this, you elders, and give ear, all you inhabitants of the land. Has anything like this happened in your days or even the days of your fathers? So he calls the elders and all the inhabitants to pay attention to what the Lord is giving them. Hear, you elders. Who were the elders? The elders were the governmental leaders. The elders were those who in a community would sit at the city gates, at the entrance to the city, and there they would hold court. You know, that's where City Hall was. City Hall was at the entrance to the gates of a community. The elders parked themselves there. Don't know if they had a building or don't know if they just had tables outside. Don't know exactly. Maybe they had a nice little porch to where they could hang out at. But that's where the elders and people brought their issues to the elders. And Joel starts off by addressing them, but not just them. It's a message for all the inhabitants of the land. Has anything like this happened in your days? Or even in the days, wait a minute, in all your busyness and all your activity that's going on, has anything like this happened before? Tell your children about it. Let your children tell their children and their children in another generation. Something is happening or is going to happen that we haven't seen before. What the chewing locust left, the swarming locust has eaten. What the swarming locust left, the crawling locust has eaten. What the crawling locust has left, the consuming locust has eaten. He says, we got things like this happened before. Even in times past, even the times of your fathers, has anything like this ever happened before? The waves of locusts have been coming, and is there 4 types of locusts? I didn't even, yeah. Hopefully we don't even know what a locust is in our land, but it was a destroying swarm of insects that would come and would clean out miles and miles wide of an area and just leave them completely clean. Always coming around harvest time, always coming when the plants were green. Locusts. We saw locusts. Didn't we see locusts in the book of Exodus? Was it one of the plagues that came across Israel? No. Across Egypt. When Israel was living in the land, wasn't one of the plagues the plague of locusts? Well, and that's not referring to this. We're in Israel now. We're in the promised land now. We don't know what time. I don't know what time. Maybe somebody else out there knows exactly what time this was going on. But he's telling the people, he's telling the elders, he's telling everyone, have we ever seen anything like this before? This morning. There's not a real strong timestamp as I've already tried to, put forth on the book. But it's something that every so often in the history of a people that they can probably identify with the book of Joel real easy. Because sometimes we say, "Oh, I know that prophet Jeremiah, that he was in here and there, and he was talking to those people," and we can kind of put it off and say, "Yeah, it was for them, but it wasn't for us," because we're always looking for excuses why not to, appropriate the word of the Lord. But this one here, look around today. Look around today. Are there things that are going on today that we thought, how many times do we say this, ladies and I know that I say it all the time. I know that we have the conversations many times, and even when I start off, almost every Sunday I start a sermon off. And I have to reference the times that we're living in. The craziness where it says that everything can be shaken, will be shook, and we are seeing the shaking going on today. There was a shaking going on in the time of this prophet as he's telling the people, and he says, tell your kids. It's going to be something that everybody's going to be talking about it. You're going to pass it on down to them, and they're going to pass it on to their children, and it's going to go from one generation to the other. The locusts have come. And first of all, the chewing locust came, and the swarming came after that, and then the crawling came after that, and then the consuming came after that, and by the time that's finished, what's left? But there is always hope. Awake, you drunkards, and weep and wail, all you drinkers of wine, because of the new wine, for it has been cut off from your mouth. So this is the way that I envision what Joel is trying to talk about. Good morning, Jody. Thank you for commenting here. I don't know if we're going to have problems with off and ons today or not. I'm trying to keep an eye on it. Now, is this really the locusts that have come through the land? Or is this a metaphor for something else? I don't know. But one thing I can tell you, in verse 5, he says, listen, we need to wake up. We need to wake up. Awake, you drunkards, and weep and wail, all you drinkers of wine, because of the new wine, for it has been cut off from your mouth. Now, the new wine is talking about the freshly squeezed juice that comes out of the grapes, which eventually will ferment and turn into an alcoholic beverage. Okay, and they had a lot of that in those days. But he says the new wine is being cut off. The locusts have come by. Do you see this happening in your world today? It's time to take off the gloves, and it's time to just allow the scriptures to speak to our situation today. Awake, you drunkards. What was Joel trying to do? Well, he was trying to address first the elders and then all the people and tell them it's time to wake up and weep. Don't you see what's going on? Don't you see what the situation is? But if you're drunk, if you're, and a lot of times, this drunkenness that I believe that Joel is talking about is a cop out for the situation that's going on. Instead of facing the situation, it would be a turning our back and trying to pretend like if it's not there already. I'm sure there's a fancier word for it. Awake, you drunkards, and weep and wail, all you drinkers of wine. He says, you're not going to have any more fermented wine to drink, to run away and hide your problems. He says, because the locusts have come and cut off the new wine. For a nation has come against my land. Strong and without number, his teeth are the teeth of a lion, and he has the fangs of a fierce lion. See, that's the way I like it. Somebody just helping me out both on the YouTube and on the Facebook side. A nation has come against my land, strong and without number. His teeth are the teeth of a lion, and he has the fangs of a fierce lion. So, is this the explanation of the metaphor of the locust, that a nation has come against my land? He has laid waste my fig tree. You say, well, is this actually a plague of locusts, or is this a invading army? Well, here's something. Let's see, but you have an echo. It's catching it somewhere else. Yeah, I have no idea what's going on that side over there. Sorry. We are having problems. Maybe because the message is just too convicting. But let's look at it this way. When an army would come, whether it's, we've looked over the few books that we've been in. We've looked at the Assyrians. We've looked at the Babylonians. We've talked about the Greeks that will be coming through, and then the Romans after that. When these armies came through, they took everything that was out over there so that they could keep their soldiers going on to the next land, and to the next land, and to the next. And they came like locusts. They came and they took everything that they could take. Anything, as long as they were victorious. But they could take whatever they wanted to take. A nation has come against my land, strong and without number. His teeth are a teeth of lion, has the fangs of fierce lion. He has laid waste my vine, ruined my fig tree, stripped it bare, thrown it away. Its branches are made white. When the marauding, whether it was the Babylonians, whether it was the Greeks, when they came against Jerusalem, and they built these siege ramps, they didn't bring the materials with them from Greece or from Babylon, or what they did is that they found the materials that were available to them there, chopped the trees down, made logs out of them, moved dirt, did everything that they could do to tear down Jerusalem. You say, okay, well, this is a metaphor, possibly, that it wasn't really a swarm of locusts, but it was an army that came against it. But there's always the spiritual component to it, and I do not get tired, and I do not apologize for talking about the spiritual component. This is the way that the enemy comes. This is the way that the thief comes. And we cannot turn our back. We cannot turn around and say, well, that's why I believe, there's a movie out there right now that a certain denomination is pushing, or a group of people or believers are pushing, called cessationist, robbing the power out of the hands of God's people is what the cessationist movement is all about. We've even had a couple of times Stephen Strang talking about it at 12 o'clock noon on the Strang Report. I'd rather not advertise the movie. I'd rather not, push it and even bring it up to your, well, I got to go here, because they're going to make some comments and accusations that seem compelling at the beginning, but you got to get both sides. But I'm telling you, we have to realize is that we are in a spiritual battle, and we need everything that God has afforded to us as his people to wage the battle. Anyway, lament like a virgin girded with sackcloth for the husband of her youth. He says, lament, that's just another word. She's preparing herself for her husband, and then something happened, and she had to put sackcloth for the husband. So apparently her husband had died before the marriage had ever really taken place. And the message that Joel is giving to the elders and to the people is get that sense deep down within you of a virgin that would have all the joy and the anticipation of her life, and then it had been taken away from her. And now she's in mourning. The grain offering and the drink offering have been cut off from the house of the Lord Yahweh. The priests mourn who minister to Yahweh. Good morning, Flo and Joe. How's the sound on Facebook? Jody says we're having a little bit of problems with the sound on YouTube. Probably the same everywhere we go, but I apologize. I don't know what to tell you. It worked good most of the time, but we've been having our issues. The grain offering and the drink offering have been cut off from the house of the Lord. The priests mourn who minister to the Lord. The grain offering. Now, see, why has the grain offering and the drink offering been cut off? Well, if we follow the context, because the locusts have come in and stripped the land. An army has come in, and there's not even enough grain for an offering. But one of the big problems is that the drunkenness of the people. The grain offering and the drink offering have been cut off from the house of the Lord. The priests mourn who minister to Yahweh. The priests are crying out, saying, we don't even have any grain or drink offering. The field is wasted. The land mourns. For grain is ruined. The new wine is dried up. The oil fails. I mean, this was like the cornerstone of their economy, ladies and gentlemen. The grain, the wine, which were the grapes, the vineyards, and the oil fails. This was the foundation of their sustenance right there. The grain, spiritually, what is the foundation of our sustenance? Let me tell you, is that, and we all know this, is that when they came out of Egypt into the wilderness, they cried out for water, God gave it to them, and they cried out for food, and God gave it to them, but after a while they didn't like the food anymore. And they were never satisfied that there was enough water, even though there was. And then they cried out for more, for they wanted meat, so God sent them meat. And then after a while, they stuffed themselves to the point to where they didn't want the meat anymore. The field is wasted, the land mourns, the grain is ruined, the new wine is dried up, the oil fails. So the bread, God gives bread. So once again, looking at a spiritual component, the food is out there. God's table is set. I have to tell them. If things were really as bad as he says they are, why is he telling them? Because they're missing it. Because they're really not seeing the real problem. Gird yourselves and lament, you priests. Wail, you who minister before the altar. Come, lie all night in sackcloth, you who minister to my God, for the grain offering and the drink offering are withheld from the house of your God. It's always a call. Remember, we talk about the prophet. The prophet isn't just, in fact, only part of the ministry of the prophet is to tell you what's going to happen. But the prophet is telling you, this is where we're at, and this is what we need to do to solve the situation. Gird yourselves, and lament, you priests. Started off talking to the elders and to all the people. Now he's addressing himself to the spiritual leaders. He says, you who wail. No. Gird yourselves and lament, you priests. Wail, you who minister before the altar. Come, lie all night in sackcloth, you who minister to my God, for the grain offering and the drink offering are withheld from the house of your God. There's always an answer to the situation. There's always a way out of a situation for any people that find themselves. We can do this on a personal level as well as on a cultural level. Verse 14 says, your God, and cry out to the Lord. So what he says, what we need is a real call to repentance. What we need is a revival of intercession. I thank God for Grover and for Mark and for Jim. We're involved in it. And that's what we did. We consecrated a fast. We called a sacred assembly. We gathered the elders and all the inhabitants of the land into the house of Yahweh your God to cry out to Yahweh. And and here we are looking over the last 2.5 or 3 weeks, and we got wars that are breaking out that are concerning everybody. Because you know that this could be the big one. I thank God for the prayer movements that are here. In fact, let me tell you about another prayer movement that you might have missed. It was at the beginning of the year. This was kind of like in the end of the winter that Mike Bickle from the ministry in Kansas City started a discussion amongst his elders and his ministry about having extra prayer for Israel. I mean, this was months ago, ladies and gentlemen. This was at least 6-8 months ago that the conversation started. And then I know I missed the weather. I know that I missed the song at the bottom of the hour, but I got to cut off early today. So, we're going to go till about 5 till or so. But Mike Bickle said, "Well, let's set some time off and pray and fast for Israel." So his elder said, "Yeah, good, yeah, let's do it. But let's call some of the other ministries." And Mike will tell you, he says, I thought it was just something that we were going to do. But they had a whole partition of time that was set off where they prayed and fasted for Israel. And then 2.5, 3 weeks ago, the war started. God's way ahead. God's way ahead. But he's looking for a people. Drunkenness, spiritual drunkenness, trying to deny the very thing that's right there in front of our face isn't going to work. That's not the call of the day. Open our eyes, open our ears, Lord. Consecrate a fast, and that's what happens when you fast. Consecrate a fast, call a sacred assembly, gather the elders. So I'm telling you, we've had prayer at the heart of San Miguel County. We've seen prayer movements, in Kansas City that spread out all over the world a few months ago, and there are a lot of other. Then that's just one of many, many. You follow somebody like Dutch Sheets and his brother and these other guys. Everybody's praying. Everybody's praying. And there's never a wrong time to pray, I would guess. Alas, for the day of the Lord is at hand. Here's the important thought in the book of Joel, the day of the Lord. Alas, he says, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as destruction from the Almighty. That's a big subject, ladies and gentlemen, in the scriptures. The day of the Lord. That's one of those things that you can never, I don't know, maybe you can, but I can't really wrap my arms all around this whole thing of the day of the Lord, because there's days that the Lord moves in different, but there's, okay, well, let's just read it. Let's not try to get, alas, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as destruction from the Almighty. Is not the food cut off before our eyes, joy and gladness from the house of our God? When Nebuchadnezzar came against us, and we found this out through the major prophets, when Nebuchadnezzar came against Jerusalem, and this is referring to this because this could have been written after, not before, but the point is, when Nebuchadnezzar came, he came with permission from heaven to do what he did. The point has already been made in the Bible. We've already been there before. I don't have to defend it. It's there. Any more than I have to defend what we talked about Sunday when we talked about whose land is it anyway? Because on Sunday my point is a lot of people talking about what's going on and the reason why it's going on, but we had to go way back in history and find out, 3,000 years ago, or even longer than that. The setup for what's going on now was done there. Is not the food cut off, verse 16, before our eyes, joy and gladness from the house of our God? The seed shrivels under the clods, meaning that the ground is dry. Storehouses are in shambles. They're empty. Barns are broken down. No, there's no reason to keep the barns up anymore. For the grain has withered. There's a way out. There's a way of turning these things around. The sheet shrivels under the clods. Storehouses in shambles. Barns are broken down. The grain is withered. How the animals groan. The herds of cattle are restless because they have no pasture. Even the flocks of sheep suffer punishment. Apparently the rain had been cut off because the seed was drying underneath the clods. Verse 19 says, O Lord, I cry out to you. For fire has devoured the open pastures, and a flame has burned all the trees of the field. The beasts of the field also cry out to you, for the water brooks are dried up, and fire has devoured the open pastures. It sounds like a pretty bad situation. Sounds like something. Now, is there areas in our world today that this has happened? I mean, I don't talk. I'm in communication with people from Africa every once. You don't know how terrible it's getting in our land. But spiritually, can we say that, because everything starts, ladies and gentlemen, first the natural, then the supernatural. And what's going on in the natural is just a reflection of what's going on in the supernatural. We can't stop praying. We can't stop crying out to our Lord and God and saying, Lord, take us there. Take us where you want us to take us. Use us as your instrument. Use us as your instrument. Let your kingdom come and let your will be done. The beasts of the field also cry out to you, for the water brooks are dried up. The fire, there I go again. The fire has devoured the open pastures. Trying to get fire and devoured into one word doesn't work. Blow the trumpet in Zion. Sound alarm on my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is coming. It is at hand. So the way many people read this is that in the first chapter, it's talking about the day of the Lord that was happening in Joel's days. But then also Joel is talking about another day. And, the way that I understand prophecy, predictive prophecy is that there's a lot of dress rehearsals of some of the main prophetic words. And the day of the Lord could be one of those, to where there was different times to where the Lord would say, this is my day that I am doing something, but it's only just a reflection of something that's going to happen in the future, the big day of the Lord. Blow the trumpet in Zion, sound an alarm on my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of Yahweh is coming, for it is at hand. A day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness. Like the morning clouds spread over the mountains, a people come, great and strong, the like of whom has never been seen, nor will there ever be any such after them, even for many successive generations. The like of whom has never been. He says, you think you're seeing it now in your time, when they've come in waves like locusts And every wave of the four that come through the land is worse than the other and takes more than the one before, until after the fourth wave, there's really nothing left and everything's dried up and the barns are down and the warehouses are destroyed and everybody's looking around, and their only their only question is, will we eat today or not? Blow the trumpet, he says. Sound the alarm. A day of darkness and gloom, clouds spread over the mountains. A people come, great and strong, the like of whom has never been, nor will there ever be any such after them, even for many successive generations. Much debate on who these people are that we find in Joel 2:2. A fire devours before them, and behind them a flame burns. The land is like the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. Surely nothing shall escape them. And behind them a desolate wilderness. All of the, I don't even remember the type of locusts coming, the chewing, the swarming, the different. Surely nothing shall escape them. Their appearance is like the appearance of horses, and like swift steeds, so they run. With a noise like chariots over mountaintops they leap, like the noise of a flaming fire that devours the stubble, like a strong people set in battle array. Before them the people writhe in pain, all faces are drained of color. A lot of things going on, ladies and gentlemen, in our world. A lot of things going on in the news. But one thing that the news misses is the battle that's going on in the heavenlies. Same battle. Wasn't it that we were just recently in the book of Daniel, to where the angel came and says, man, I had been dispatched the first day that you prayed. I was dispatched by the Lord God Almighty. It says, but I had the prince of Persia that was battling up with me, and I came with a message, and when I go back, he says the prince of Greece is going to be right behind me. Things are going on in the spiritual realm. Oh, the spirit, you sure? I think that's just metaphor. No, it's not. It's a real. There's just, if we think all this is all concerned about just one little rock spinning around the sun in a big old galaxy universe creation thing that's out over there, there's a lot more going to it, and it's a lot bigger than what we understand. And we don't understand a lot. But we do understand enough, because there is the scripture behind a weakness in the promises that God has, and God laughs at them. And you can look at Psalm 2, say God will just sit back and laugh at them. Before them the people writhe in pain. All faces are drained of color. They run like mighty men. They climb the wall like men of war. Everyone marches in formation, and they do not break ranks. Here's the army that's coming. They run like mighty men. They climb the wall like men of war. Everyone marches in formation. They do not break ranks. It's almost like going back to the locust and seeing the locusts coming, climbing the wall, marching in formation. They do not break ranks. There's no confusion against them. They're coming. They're coming. They do not push one another. Everyone marches in his own column. Though they lunge between the weapons, they are not cut down. They run to and fro in the city. They run on the wall houses. They enter at the windows like a thief. The earth quakes before them. The heavens tremble. The sun and the moon grow dark, and the stars diminish their brightness. The Lord gives voice before his army, for his camp is very great. It's and I'm with you. It's hard. So are we talking about the devil, or we're talking about God's army? Are we talking about the Assyrians or Babylonians or the Greeks or the Romans? Or are we talking about, or are we talking about the good guys? Who is it? The good guys, or who's the bad guys? Well, that's an interesting point. Who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? We're going to resume here tomorrow and continue into Joel chapter 2, verse 1.